I don't do no special. Everyone is special, but you ain't that special. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Aaliyah with another episode of And I Should Care Because, the podcast where we talk about higher ed policy changes and I help you navigate those changes one news story at a time. Today we are picking up where we left off about the dreaded syllabus. So I still have the link down in the description box from the for the article that inspired this whole topic, talking about how professors can make their syllabus much more approachable and to have more reasonable policies about late work and stuff like that. So you can kind of read that as a professor to professor perspective. But the goal of this podcast is to talk about what does it mean for you as a student? How can you look at the syllabus, whether it's written with more clarity and more student focused or not, and get all the information that you need? Last time we talked about the overall what does the syllabus have? The different headings that you might see to break up the syllabus and what information is in there. In this one, we're going to talk about something that's a little bit more nebulous, and that is course expectations. You don't always see a section specifically written about course expectations. It's something that's scattered throughout, and you need to pick through the syllabus to figure out what it is. So when we're talking about expectations of the course, we're talking about everything from just the brass tacks of how are you going to be assessed? Are you going to have a weekly quiz? Are there reading assignments that you need to do? If it's a lab course, do you have to read the lab and then do a pre-lab quiz every week? What do you have to do? What assignments are due? What things are optional? Are there readings associated with each class? Attendance. Do you have to show up? Is that part of your participation grade? Is there a participation grade as part of your overall grade? All of those things are expectations in terms of what work do you have to do in the course. But expectations are not just about the work. It's also about what you're expected to gain from the course. We talked about this a little bit with the course objectives / student learning outcomes / there's other goals, that tells you in broad strokes what information you're supposed to be getting from the course. And I hinted to last time that you really do need to take that to heart because it will help you with your studying. We'll talk about study tips and stuff towards the end, but usually study tips are not included in the syllabus. It's something that students want. It's something I think should be included, but oftentimes it's not. The closest thing that you have is the course description, which tells you in general what you're supposed to be learning about, the topics, and then the course goals or objectives, which tells you kind of like what you're going to be able to do by the end of the course. And you should identify those things as you're going through the course. So when you're in chapter 1, when you're in chapter 2, chapter 7, as you progress through the course, you should be looking back at those course objectives to say, okay, am I still working on these things? Am I still focusing on these things when I'm reading, when I'm going through my notes? Am I focusing on these objectives to make sure that I'm learning and growing in these areas? Because it will really help you to focus when you have all this information and you're like, so I've got 800 pages of notes to study for one exam. What? It will really help you narrow things down. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go to your professor and ask for help. No. But it should definitely give you a starting place. And what's really encouraging as a professor and what makes me personally be like, all right, I'm willing to help you, not more, but I'm more enthusiastic about helping students that have already started to help themselves. That you've put in some work and energy to understand where your deficits are so that I can help you fill them versus we spend an hour with you going through your notes trying to figure out what you don't know. Like, that's not for me to sit in on. That's for you to do at your leisure. And then you come to me and say, hey, I've got questions that I've written throughout my notes from The last 2 lectures, can we go through my questions? Absolutely, sir or madam. Have a seat. Well, more like have a virtual seat, because I don't be doing office hours in person no more. I got a family, and then nope. COVID and monkeypox? Child, look, y'all ain't trying to steal my life. I have joy. Thank you. Anyway, course expectations are, again, this nebulous thing, but you can pull it together from the course objectives and the goals and stuff, and you can use those things to guide your studying. Again, you're going to see me look off into the distance because I've got my notes on my screen, because I'm trying to save some trees. I mean, I already have the printer paper, so those trees have been sacrificed. But I'm trying to use the trees more sparingly. So I did not print my notes to put them down next to me. I have them on a screen. So if I look away, that's what I'm doing. It's a lot of information, y'all. And my brain, if y'all watch the life updates, mommy brain is real, okay? Ain't getting all the sleep that I need. Still trying to do all the things. So have some grace for me. Thank you. So, we talked about the nuts and bolts of what are you expected to do, weekly assignments, all that stuff. We also talked about how your learning will be assessed, right? Which those two things are linked. So maybe there's weekly readings that you're expected to do, but you're not graded on it. But there's a weekly quiz that, covers some other stuff in class, or there's pop quizzes or something like that. So it tells you about what you're expected to do and what is graded, right? Those are two different things. And sometimes you got to make a decision. This ain't going to be graded, so I ain't going to do this because I got to do this other thing over here. Real life. That's just you being responsible. Do what you got to do. The other thing is talking about the concepts that you're expected to know. And we touched on that with the course goals. But sometimes that is also kind of within the class schedule, if there is one. And it's not explicit. But if you look at the amount of time that you take to cover each topic, the ones that you spend more time on are either more difficult or weighted more heavily. So pay attention to how much time you spend per chapter or section or whatever, however it's broken up, because that gives you an indicator of how the professor weights the importance of the topic. So it may be a really important topic, but it's really easy. So you spend, a couple of class sessions on it, right? And your professor just says, this is important. It's an easy concept, but we're going to build on it. And so you keep revisiting it, right? Or it could be something that's more difficult that you spend maybe 3 or 4 class periods on, which is unheard of, I know. But maybe that's something that's more difficult. So I'm a chemistry person, biochemistry person. So my examples are going to come from that field. If that ain't your field, I'm sorry. But when I'm teaching an intro chemistry course and I'm teaching stoichiometry, which is pretty much like if you have a recipe and you want to scale it up or scale it down, you use that recipe to have all the ratios for how all the different ingredient amounts relate to each other. So if you want to make a big old batch of something like I always do, then you scale up. But all things don't scale up equally. If you want to scale it down because maybe you're just cooking for you or you and a friend or a significant other and you don't need to make 8 servings, then you scale it down appropriately, right? It's the same thing when you're doing a chemical reaction, right? It's just a glorified recipe with the chemical equation. So you need to scale up, scale down, figure out how much product you're going to use or how much product you're going to make, not use, or how much reactant you need, right? How much starting materials you need. Stoichiometry is hard for a lot of students, but once they get it, it makes a lot of sense. So we got to spend more time on it. And it's something that you're going to see a lot. And if you can't do it, then you're going to struggle in lab courses. So we spend a lot of time on it, and you can see that on the syllabus. That indicates, hey, you need to make sure to give this topic enough time and energy because it is important to your girl. It's important to me, your professor. It's important to you. So I try to indicate that on my screen just went to sleep. Don't do me like that, screen. I try to indicate that on the syllabus. Y'all seeing all the real life. Because look, just having a baby, life is crazy. Sometimes things just don't do the way that you expect them to do. But we still moving on. Okay, professors are real people. So the next part about expectations is looking at what foundation do you need to be successful in this course. And we hit on that a little bit too last time about prerequisites. There aren't always prerequisites for a course, but the course description can kind of tell you what information would be helpful to understand before jumping into the course. Or at least, like, have you heard of this thing over here? Have you heard of that thing over there? It helps you to get your mind right to know, okay, this is what I'm going to be studying. So let me kind of go through my catalog of what I've learned so far and see if I have anything that relates to this topic that I'm learning. That's the extra mile that I'm not going to say most students don't do, but a lot of students don't do, not because they're lazy, but because y'all just don't know that that's a good idea. And you don't know the information, like how to do that. So I'm telling you, look at that course description. Look at the prerequisites. Make sure that if you are in a course where you took, the prereq 3 semesters ago, make sure you brush up on it. Ask your professor, hey, I took this course, it was a few semesters ago. Which topics would you suggest brushing up on to make sure that I'm prepared for your course? You will make that professor do a backflip, okay? Because you're like, hey, look, I'm here. I'm ready to work. I am going to make your life easier so you don't have to reteach a course and then teach the course I'm enrolled in. Because that's oftentimes what ends up happening. People forget, or they just don't go through their notes. They're not ready. And then they struggle in the beginning because they have to kind of reteach or relearn, unearth all the information that they had from that course that they took a few semesters ago. And then they still have to do the work to stay caught up in the class that they're in. So don't be like that. On the front end, very beginning, even at the first, class session, raise your hand and ask. Or at the end, go up to your professor or stay behind, in the Zoom room or whatever it is, if it's a virtual course, and ask, hey, these prerequisites were listed. What do you suggest I go over to make sure that I'm prepared for what's coming? And they may even send out an email or some kind of, announcement to the class to share that information because it's really helpful. I personally think it should be in the syllabus already, but if it's not, ask. Okay. Next, missed work, missed exams, that kind of thing. All of that information is in there, and we talked about that and how sometimes the expectations are a bit harsh. But know what they are, because it's inevitable in at least one of your classes, you're going to have to ask for some grace. And if you approach your professor by saying, help me, they're going to be like, bruh, why are you so dramatic? You saw what it is. You knew it was due. So how come you didn't make allowances? And while that's valid, sometimes you just can't. Life is just overwhelming. Or there's things that are more important, like your family, or you got to work and you work in the extra hours because you need to, your car broke down and you need to get it out of the shop. Like, life happens. So communicating with your professor and saying, hey, I know that the late work policy is this. I'm asking if there's any way that I can turn in this assignment and get partial credit because blah, blah, blah. And you don't even necessarily have to go into detail, but just asking and acknowledging, hey, I know what the policy is. I understand that the answer could very well be no, but I'm just going to shoot my shot anyway. Let me know. Mad respect for that. So if you do that, you're much more likely to, 1, get a response and not just get blown off. And 2, they're much more likely to help you. So just make sure that you're familiar with what the policies are so that you can say, hey, I get it, and it should be this. But if you see any space, any room in your heart to spare the rod this time, you never know, right? And the same thing with exams. Now, exams are a little bit more difficult because everybody's taking it at the same time, and your professor doesn't necessarily want to have to give you a different exam because you missed the other one. And there's all the university policies about what is excusable in terms of missing an exam. But even still, if you know something's about to happen, just let them know. Shoot your shot. Maybe you can take it early instead of missing it and getting a 0. Or maybe the lowest exam grade is dropped. So you can just at least drop them a line and say, hey, I saw in the syllabus that the lowest exam grade score is dropped. I'm going to be unable to attend on the day of exam 3. So can I use, can this be my dropped exam? Boom, there you go. And what that does is it creates relationship and rapport with your professor so that they know you're not slacking. It's just something came up. Life happens. The class is important and you're prioritizing it by communicating, but you're also handling your business as an adult person. Can't get mad at that. So make sure that you're familiar with the policies so you can utilize them. Sometimes it says, hey, this is the grace that I can extend to you. Just shoot me an email when you need to use it. Then you do that. Instead of emailing them saying, hey, is there any grace? It's already been written that there is. So do your homework, understand for each course how it works. All right. I've been barking up that tree for a while, so let's just move on. It's one of those things that just, if you know what you're into, then it will really help you succeed. So please, please, please heed my warnings. All right. The other thing is extra credit. So all classes don't have extra credit, and how they add extra credit in is very unique to each professor and each course. I personally do not give individual extra credit assignments, and I say so in the syllabus. But what I do is I add extra credit questions. So I add extra questions to exams, homeworks, and quizzes and stuff like that, so that you have the opportunity to earn more than 100%. Or you can get, something wrong and still get a good score, right? So that's how I work in extra credit. And if I do an extra credit assignment, it's an assignment for everyone. So coming to me individually and saying, hey, is there any extra credit that I can do? I'm going to tell you, look, there's extra credit on homeworks and assignments and the like. Put in the work, get as many points as you can there. But I don't give individual assignments. You would be surprised how many people still ask, even though it's written in the syllabus and I say it. I don't do no special. Everyone is special, but you ain't that special. Nobody's getting an extra credit opportunity that others are not getting. It's just not fair. So, don't come and ask me, can I get an assignment? No. How about you ask me how you can make up your work? Let's start there. People think extra credit is like this salve that can, heal the wounds of your sad and failing grade. It ain't. It ain't. So don't try to rely on extra credit like it's going to save you. It's not going to. But each class is different. So make sure that you understand the expectations in terms of extra credit, whether it exists. And if there is no clause about extra credit, then the world is your oyster. That means you just go and ask. If you want to try to do some, see what they have to say. You never know, right? So expectations are really, I keep using the word nebulous. It's just one of those things that you have to go through the whole syllabus and put it together yourself to understand what they're asking of you for the course. And if you don't think you can do it, then you shouldn't. That's why the add drop period is there. You get to taste, nibble, sample, say, all right, this one's cool, this one ain't. And then if you're not cool with that class, then you drop it and you add something else to your schedule. but make sure that you know what you're getting into. So use the syllabus as a resource and don't just read it once and then throw it away. When you have a question about the course, like when something is due, about grading, or those kinds of things, look at your syllabus first. Then, if you can't find the information, you can try phoning a friend, but sometimes that friend is wrong. Let's just be real. But then you can ask your professor. But don't ask a question like, when is assignment 2 due, when it's in your syllabus. It's frustrating. And it makes people be like, yeah, you're just another one of those. Don't do that. Don't be lumped in like that. Maybe it's not fair for the professor to feel that way, but when you teach multiple courses and you've got 100 students emailing you about various assignments and when they're due, it's like, look, man, I don't get paid to do this. I get paid to teach you, not to be your life organizer. So just keep that in mind when you're approaching your professors and asking for help or asking for information, that if they're giving you that attitude, it may very well be because they gave you that information like 12 times and they showed you where it was in the syllabus and you still didn't pay attention. So attitude, not fair, but I understand where it's coming from. So make sure you do your due diligence. That means do your homework, try to find the information on your own before you reach out and ask your professor about something like a due date or something like that, because chances are that information is somewhere else that you can easily access. All right. That's it for the syllabus. First part, we talked about what is in the syllabus. Second part, we talked about what you need to piece together, the course expectations, and then make a decision about whether or not that course fits your needs. Even if it fits your schedule, it may not fit your needs. So let me know in the comments if this was helpful. Let me know if you have a syllabus that has course expectations explicitly laid out, because that would be wonderful. If you have other suggestions for what would make a syllabus more approachable, more readable, more helpful, put those in the comments as well. All right, y'all. Make it a great day, and make it a great day for somebody else. And I'll see you back here soon.